All right. So let's see. If you have a question, you can go ahead and put it in the chat box, or just feel free to unmute yourself and jump in. We're a pretty friendly group. So let's get started with some introductions. So I think it might be helpful. Paul's, not very familiar with the Farm to School program or our efforts to help get more Oregon products into school meals. So I think it'd be great if you all could introduce yourselves, maybe just share your role, the organization you're with, and where you're located around the state. And so I'll just go, I'll call on everyone so everyone knows me, but I'm Amy with Oregon Department of Agriculture, and I work to support the Farm to School program in collaboration with Department of Education and the Farm to School Network, who's also on the call. And I think, Melina, I'll call on you so you can kind of give Paul a picture of the network and how the regional hubs work across the state, if you want to kind of paint that picture for him.
Sure. Hi, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I am driving right now.
We can hear you. Yep.
Okay, good. So my name's Melina Barker. I'm the director of the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network. And the network is a community-driven group across the state of folks working in farm to school, child nutrition, education, food production, community support organizations and state agencies. And one of the ways that we support farm to school is through our regional hubs, which some of you are on the call today and familiar with our regional hubs, but those are really anchor organizations in different parts of the state, often community organizations, sometimes OSU Extension, county-based agents who support folks in their region, either with farm and garden education or, more appropriate to this group, local food procurement. So that means that a regional hub is helping to build relationships between food producers and child nutrition programs, help them navigate sourcing and any challenges that come up along the way around distribution or contracting. And so regional hubs are definitely a resource, and the network tries to be really responsive to what the community needs across the state. And we've heard a while back that there were lots of questions and challenges popping up around getting more Oregon beef into schools, and what the different pathways for that would be, and how it works, and what's allowed, and where you can get it. So that's why we brought together this working group, and have just been kind of following the threads of what we're trying to learn and figure out together. And it's led us here to learning more about the Oregon meat processing and grant program. So excited to hear more about it today.
Great. Thanks, Melina.
Normally I live in Ashland, Oregon. Right now I'm on my way to Portland, and I work statewide.
Awesome. Jordan.
Hi, Jordan Haas, School Nutrition Director with Hood River County Schools, and I live here in Hood River.
All right, Lindsay.
Sorry to unmute myself. I'm in kind of a noisy office, but hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm the Nutrition Director at LeGrand School District in Eastern Oregon, and we use farm to school beef quite a lot, so I'm happy to be here, learn some more. I'm gonna mute myself again.
Thanks, Lindsay. All right, Karen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Wagner. I'm in Pendleton, and I serve the Umatilla and Morrow counties mainly for the Farm to School, School Garden Network Regional Hub in procurement. I also have a couple of kind of hinterland contacts down in Wheeler County and Gillum, all of whom are interested in beef. And I'm on the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Steering Committee.
Thanks, Karen. Katrina?
Hi, everyone. Katrina Weiss, Bend Lapine Schools. Hey, Paul, we've been at this for 20 plus years. I'm the wellness specialist. I oversee the Farm to School here in Central Oregon for Bend Lapine Schools. And yeah, we started this, I think, 20 years ago. And so we're really excited. Hopefully we'll get there and get that beef going.
Thanks, Katrina. Pam?
Hi everyone, Pam Sumatsu, Ontario School District, very Eastern Oregon. And I am super excited to hear what everybody's doing. And I am looking forward to getting some beef into our schools. I've reached out to a few suppliers, so really excited to do that. Thank you.
All right, Kara.
Okay, sorry, my computer's not working. So I'm Kara Miller. I am the food service director with Baker School District, so rural Eastern Oregon. Pam and Lindsay and I are all kind of neighbors. So I actually am working on the Cattlemen's Association donating beef to Baker County schools, which includes North Powder School District. And so hopefully that's a go this fall as well. But love farm to school and love getting Oregon products in our schools.
Thanks, Kara. All right, is that everybody? There is a phone number on here. Is that someone?
Hi, yep. Hi, it's Christy Athens. I'm the procurement hub lead for Oregon Farm to Schools for most of Eastern Oregon. And so hi, all of my colleagues who are on this call.
Hi, Christy. Thanks for joining us. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul. He's got some slides to share. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about him. And of course, he can speak up and also talk about his work. But he started his career with the USDA Food Safety Inspection Service in 1991 as a slaughter inspector. And he's worked all over the Northwest as a food inspector, as well as a compliance officer for USDA. He spent 17 years for USDA doing food safety audits at the federal plants. And he's a subject matter expert in food safety. So he spent about 30 years with USDA before retiring in 2022, and he came to ODA to start the state meat inspection program. And since joining ODA, Paul says they've been able to get our state meat inspection program approved by USDA in July of 2022. And Oregon now has 2 firms that are working under the state meat inspection program. He's going to talk about this today. And then he's projecting that 5 more firms are going to come under state meat inspection program in the next 6 months. So we're excited to hear about that. So Paul, I think I will turn it over to you to share your slide deck and we can get started.
All right, thanks, Amy. Nice to meet everyone. And so, and can you guys see my slides?
We can. We're seeing your we're seeing the notes.
Oh, the notes. Okay.
Which is fine if yeah.
Let me how about now?
There we go. Yep. There you go.
Okay. So like Amy said, yes, I actually planned on staying with USDA longer, but when this opportunity come up and Oregon was going to start a meat inspection program, I thought, how amazing, you know, how fun to be in on the ground floor of something. So I left USDA to come here specifically for this, you know, to do something local in our own state. I'm a native Oregonian, born and raised most of my life down in Roseburg area. And so this was just super exciting for me. So I'm gonna give a little background on the meat inspection program first, and then we'll kind of work it into hopefully how I can help you. I think we all want to achieve the same goals of getting our locally raised stuff processed locally, distributed locally, consumed locally. And so we're all working towards that same mission. We're just all coming at it from different angles. And so, like I said, our program was approved by USDA in July 2022. There's a whole list of components that we had to demonstrate that we could operate this equal to the federal meat inspection system. And so we had to write lots of programs. I submitted lots of stuff to them. They did a lot of review and finally give us our equal to status in July. The real purpose of this was really trying to help very small firms be able to produce stuff and sell it locally. You know, we don't want to compete with the USDA. That was never our goal. We really have focused this towards the very small producers in rural areas that really are just underserved by USDA. You know, USDA is a big federal program. And so if you're a large plant, yeah, they'll cater to you and really help you get going. But if you're a very small producer in Baker, for example, or Baker City, you're not going to get the same attention. Well, we are giving that attention. And so I give a couple examples here. You know, we get a lot of calls or had a lot of inquiries from someone that makes really good beef jerky or sausage or whatever the product is, and they've been selling it retail, but now a store down the street or a restaurant wants to buy it and be able to use it as well. Well, that would require the federal inspection or now our state meat inspection. Another example which directly fits in with what you folks are doing is we had a lot of farmers that said, hey, I want to donate a beef to our local school or buy one at the auction. The problem is there's no inspected slaughter firms in most of Eastern Oregon. And if you can take it to Prineville, for example, you got a 6 to 8 month wait time. And so we are really targeting these small areas on how we can help if our program works for them. And then if someone is willing to say, yes, I want to do this, I work with them directly. I have been to most of the towns doing outreach that all of you have mentioned, except for Ontario. Haven't made it quite over to Ontario yet, but I've spent time in Burns and in Bend and John Day, in LeGrand and Pendleton. So I really have trying to get out there and let people know it's available, meeting with these small custom exempt shops mostly, and explaining the inspection process. So as we mentioned, as soon as we got this, we had one firm come under inspection right away in August of 2022. They were our first state inspected establishment. So we started with number 100 because I just thought it was kind of weird to start with number 1. So we thought we'd boost up a little bit. And so that is our Oregon Inspection logo. So if you bought their product, you're going to see that on their label. And interestingly enough, they make charcuterie boxes for wineries. Not what I expected to really be part of the state meat inspection program, but it all fits within that. Our second place, which is our actual first inspected slaughter facility, was the meeting place up in Hillsboro. So they have locally raised beef. They're slaughtering about 6 to 8 a week, and currently it's just being cut up for their retail store. But in this, you know, farm to fork type environment that we want, having something local has generated a lot of attention. And so when they do these 6 to 8 beef, they cut it up the next week. It is selling out in about 18 hours. People are lining up because they want to buy locally raised stuff. And so I see this going to just continue to grow and expand as more people join. We have 2 firms that are coming in real quick, probably about the 1st of September. So we're 3 weeks away from that. I expected about 5 by the end of the year, 5 more. But then looking at about 12 months, I have 10 to 12 on my list that are in various stages of the process of coming under inspection. And I know some people are like, why not more? You know, what's the holdup? 2 doesn't sound very impressive, but there's a lot of work that goes into coming under an inspection system where that product can go out into market. First and foremost, your building has to be up to construction standards. So we have requirements that floors, walls, ceilings be in good repair, moisture resistant. You got to have adequate animal holding facilities. And then there's a lot of written programs that go along with it. you know, the federal government loves paperwork. They love written programs. We, in turn, to be equal to, have to require those same programs. And so every firm that wants to come under state meat inspection has to develop a sanitation program. It's called an SSOP, and it basically outlines what they're going to do to make sure the facility is clean and sanitary prior to start, and then maintain clean and sanitary during operations. They have to develop HACCP plans. So if you're not familiar with the acronym of HACCP, it's Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points. And basically, they have to look at each step of their process, determine if there's any physical, chemical, or biological hazards at these steps, and then implement controls for that. So there's a long regulatory process that a firm has to go through to meet the federal inspection requirements. Thankfully, because we are a smaller agency, we're able to provide that hands-on assistance to them. I basically walk them through the process. You know, let's start with getting your facility ready. Let me show you what an example sanitation plan looks like, and then help them formulate their own. We look at their processes that they want to do, and I help them develop HACCP plans. And then depending on the product type, there's always a sampling plan that goes with it. And a lot of, I guess if you're not involved in the meat industry, a lot of people don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. So for example, we probably all remember the Jack in the Box E. coli outbreak in 1993. Well, since then, if you are a federal or now a state inspected establishment and you produce ground beef that's going to go in commerce to restaurants, to stores, to schools, they have to do ground beef sampling at a specified frequency, and it's dependent upon product volume. We, as a regulatory agency, also do verification sampling of that ground beef. And so the purpose of that is at some point in that process, from start to finish, all ground beef that makes it to market should have been tested at least once for E. coli 015787. We don't want another E. coli outbreak. And we try to put those sampling plans in place to prevent that. If someone is making ready-to-eat products like beef jerky, pepperoni sticks, well, then our hazard is listeria. And so we require them to sample at some frequency for listeria in their environment and the product. And then we also do verification sampling. And so as we've started this program, it's taken a while for a firm that says, yeah, I want to do this, to then work through the process. And so it is a little bit slow and it seems a little daunting at first, but I'm really there to make it easier for them, to answer the questions, to show them example ones, to really try to help them get there and be successful. This kind of all got kicked off at the end of June 2021 with the legislative session. So they awarded $2 million to help kind of start this meat inspection programs. And this was designed that, you know, if we're targeting these small rural custom exempt facilities, they may need to make some improvements to really get the building where it needs to be sanitation wise. They may need to add equipment. And so this initial seed money was really to kind of help our industry get going. It wasn't limited just to a certain type of firm. They really opened this to everyone because we want to increase slaughter capacity first. That's step one. We increase slaughter capacity. Now we can get, you know, that wait time cut down. And then hopefully we'll have new firms come under that. Now we're not only cutting down the wait times at these federal plants, but also given new opportunities. So with the initial awards, 3 current USDA firms received part of that to improve facilities and try to increase their volume. And then 3 firms that were not under inspection were also awarded. So the Meeting Place Slaughter, like I said, was our first inspected slaughter. And so they were awarded part of the grant money. They built their slaughter facility and now up and going. Have two more Mountain Valley meats up in Mount Hood area, or Parkdale actually, and then Busman's over in Bandon also should be up and going by the end of the year. And so right there, we're going to add, between this, we have 3 new slaughter firms in Oregon that we didn't have last year. This year, at the end of the legislative session, they've given another $9 million set aside for small and very small plants. It's going to be kind of the same requirements. Either you're a USDA Food Safety Inspection Service regulated, or you're going to come under the state meat inspection. And so this is going to give a huge boost to our industry. You know, like I said, I've met with 2 different firms down in Burns that both of them want to build some type of slaughter facility. Well, Harney County has 250,000 head of cattle, and they don't even have that many people. So getting a slaughter facility down in Burns area would be wonderful. John Day's the same way. You know, we think, oh, it's only 100 miles from Burns, but there's a huge mountain range you got to go over to get from one to the other. So if we can get some of these smaller facilities up and going with some type of slaughter and processing, well, then if that rancher down in Harney County wants to donate a beef, it could be raised locally, slaughtered locally, and distributed locally. And that's really the key to this, is we don't want to have to ship meat from Portland to Burns, or, you know, if we can do it all in Burns or do it all in John Day or LeGrand, that's really our goal with this. So along with this grant money that I think is going to generate a lot of interest, the legislature also passed Senate Bill 479. And 479 was really, I think, one that all of you are interested in, because it directs the state to adopt rules to allow the donation of meat to charitable organizations and other organizations that offer this food for non-commercial purposes. So along with this rule, there's 3 options with it. And these options, option 1 was basically the meat that's going to be donated went through a federally inspected establishment. That's already been the case. That was already allowed prior to our meat inspection program. Unfortunately, that was the only way it could be donated. Now with our state meat inspection program, under option 2 there, if the meat is processed under state meat inspection, then it's equal to the federal, it can also be donated. But then they threw in a 3rd option. And that 3rd option was that it could be processed at a custom processing establishment or slaughtered at a custom slaughtering establishment, as long as it was pursuant to our Oregon revised statutes. Well, it sounds wonderful, but it kind of created a mess, because in our revised statutes, first we had to look at the definition. So that custom slaughtering establishment means any mobile or stationary establishment where animals can be slaughtered. We have no avenue for mobile slaughter to be done under any type of inspection. And so they wrote an option in there in the Senate bill that basically we can't accommodate currently. The other problem it created was in our revised statutes. We have a law that says product can't be sold, held, or offered for sale if it hasn't come through either the federal inspection or a state meat inspection program. And so even though they passed a Senate bill that said this meat could be done at custom exempt facilities and donated, well, it's in violation of our existing revised statutes. And so I talked with our program director, Rusty Rock, and we're trying to see if there is a middle ground. Is there a way to make this work? And this is what I've been working on in my side projects, is can we develop a set of rules that would allow for some type of limited inspection at a custom exempt facility where the product is designated for donation only to a nonprofit or one of these school type situations, and still meet the intent of the Senate bill, but not be in violation of our Oregon revised statutes. That's about all I can say on that. I'm still working on, I'm still trying to develop it. Once I get it developed, then it has to go to USDA to make sure we're not in violation of their federal laws. And then we'll come back and tweak as necessary. So I say all that just to let all of you know, we are working on this. I am trying every avenue to make this work. Short of, I guess our other option is a firm would come under state inspection if they wanted to do this donation. You know, hopefully if we, with this grant monies, if we generate enough interest, maybe we will have some of these facilities apply for state meat inspection, which then makes it easier to get that meat donated. Before I go on, I just, oh, go ahead.
Can I ask a question? I know you're
Yes.
saying about donation. I'm an advocate for paying for the meat. And so if we don't get it donated and we do have to pay for it, then all bets would be off then, right? I mean, because we would be buying it, even though we're a nonprofit, we want to support that agriculture entity, and we don't want a donation. We want to pay for it.
Yes. So actually, it doesn't change the rules. So when we see sell on here, sell, the definition of our sell here is basically the transfer of the meat, whether there's money exchanged hands or not. So whether you actually paid for it or they give it to you for free doesn't matter. Your options for getting it into the school are the same, or to any nonprofit. It either has to go through federal inspection, has to be done under our state meat inspection, or now with the Senate bill, we're trying to make it work for custom facilities. And the intent of that, I do believe, was for those areas like Burns, Lakeview, John Day, that don't have an inspected establishment. Could an animal be done in a custom exempt facility? And so that's really what I'm trying to write the rules for. They use donation in the bill because I think whoever really pushed this and got it sponsored said, hey, we want to donate this meat. Even with donations, I know Oregon Food Bank still pays, you know, the cutting wrapping fee for the meat. So typically there's still some monetary charges involved, but it's how do we get animals slaughtered more locally to where they are and still be able to distribute that meat. And so I want to clarify.
Well, too, you can go ahead and finish, but I have a question.
Sure.
So what we're doing is the Cattlemen's Association is taking the donated beef to Napa because that's our closest USDA certified. So typically what they've done in the past is everything's been covered by Cattlemen's Association, but due to raising costs and, you know, the fuel to transport those animals over to that processing facility, I usually pay for the processing fee. But because it's at a USDA site, is that okay to accept as a kind of quote unquote donation?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So because you're using a federal establishment, yeah, whether you pay or the Cattlemen's Association pay, it doesn't matter. It's really the source. So everything goes back to the source meat, you know, where it was slaughtered and processed. And so that requires some type of either federal or state oversight. And with those, again, if you're under federal inspection, you got to meet all the federal requirements. Under our state meat inspection, you got to meet the state meat inspection requirements, meaning the development of your sanitation programs, your HACCP programs, your sampling programs. That, I think, is what scares a lot of these small custom exempt facilities initially, is what scares them away from being a part of it. oh, I got to write all these programs and the government's going to be looking over my shoulder. But we need that source approval so that the meat can then be distributed. And so yes.
Could you just explain really quickly what custom exempt is for folks?
Yes. Yeah, I was going to clarify that. So again, with the inspection types, most people understand the federal inspection, and now we have our state meat inspection. Custom exempt, we have about 80 of them in Oregon that are custom exempt operators, are licensed for that. But what that custom exempt limits them to is basically they are providing a service that the customer pays for. The customer has to own the animal. You call them, they come out typically with their mobile slaughter, butcher it for you, take it back to their shop, cut and wrap it. It has to be marked not for sale because this is a private transaction that you own the animal, and then that meat can only go back to you. That meat that you receive back, you can't then donate that to a food bank or a school or anyone else because it never went through an inspection process for wholesomeness. So anything that goes outside of your private residence has to be inspected for wholesomeness before it could be distributed into the market. And so custom exempts currently are limited just to providing that service for you. Now, many custom exempt shops also will get licensed as a retailer. Well, what they have to do is they have to purchase in federally inspected or state inspected meat that they can then cut up and sell retail. And so all meat has to come from that, what we call the approved source, meaning it receives some type of inspection during slaughter and processing.
Can you answer this? Is Stafford's and Elgin, is that finally up and running as an approved USDA site? Or what's Billy Bob's? Sorry, I know Stafford's, so and that's what it's been since I was a kid.
Yes, yes, Billy Bob's is operating. I think currently they slaughter like twice a month, I think, under federal inspection. But yes, they are up and running. We're coming up on game season, so right now it's kind of crazy to try to get anything in anywhere because people are really scaling up for wild game and all the deer and elk. But yes, they are operating.
Yeah,
I will. Yes. So other than Ontario, I'm sorry, Ontario's kind of been neglected up to this point. Most of these locations where you people are, I have talked to someone in that community and I'm working with them. So relief is coming in some form. It's just a little bit of a slow process.
Is there so, City?
What's that?
Have you talked to a facility in Baker City? Because even Elgin is an hour plus away from us.
Yes, not in Baker City, but in LeGrand. And so I'm within 60 miles of you.
Okay.
So I think Heinz Meat in LeGrand,
okay.
I think they will come under inspection, and they have a nice facility already. It's just Jake, I got to get him, I got to get him sold on it that this will benefit everyone. So I think we'll get him there.
I'll give him a nudge.
Yes.
Paul, can I ask also about being that it's county fair season and all these FFA animals and 4-H animals are coming up, and some of obviously some of them are making weight, and then they're not going through the FFA auction per se or the 4-H auction, and that's a great opportunity for schools at this time to pick up a beef if needed, but they typically send. I know in Central Oregon they've been sending to California. Because they load them up by the truckload and send them down because we just don't have the capacity here. Well, with Butcher Boys being 8 months out, like you said, I just got hogs from them, and my hogs were over 400 pounds a piece because I took so long to get them in there to get them slaughtered. So would this help us with that? I mean, at some point, could we say, we could go to Redmond Smokehouse and say, hey, go ahead and then cut up my beef, and then I could take it from there versus not being able to because I can't get into Butcher Boys.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. So Redmond Smokehouse, unfortunately, he doesn't have a kill floor. but he does have mobile slaughter. So with this Senate bill, if we can get rules written that USDA will sign off on, then we would be able to set up something. Specifically, fair season is crazy. This would benefit us so much if we can get something set up where we can do a mobile slaughter, but still do it under ODA's oversight inspection. You know, part of that is we look at the animal live before it's slaughtered. And then during the slaughter process, we are checking that animals for disposition health. And I'm sorry if any of you have weak stomachs, I'll apologize in advance. But we're looking at the heart, the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, internal organs. We really certify that the animal is healthy at the time of slaughter. And so if we can set up some type of situation where fair season and we have 5 or 10 beef that various people had purchased, you know, for, I'll still use the word donation, but for use in commerce, if we can get that slaughter inspected, then taken back to Redmond Smokehouse and processed under our oversight and marked, you know, ODA inspected this for wholesomeness, it's not for sale, but it can be donated type thing, then absolutely, you know, we're going to eliminate some of those truckloads of beef going to California that we'll be able to buy them locally at the fair, process them locally, and then distribute it out.
Melina, do you have a question? You got your hand up for a while.
Yeah, my question, you were touching on it a little bit. I just wanted to understand, you're talking about the inspection program certifying slaughter. I wanted to understand like the pathway or the difference between certifications for slaughter and processing. So if they're the same operation that's going to slaughter it and then eventually have ground beef for purchase, or if there's another facility or business that's just slaughtering and just processing into the form that schools might be interested in purchasing it in. So that was my question, was just slaughter versus processing, and if they're the same business or two different businesses that would require some coordination. And then I just wanted to say I'm loving this conversation, and I really appreciate the sentiment of wanting to purchase from beef producers, because that's definitely in line with farm to school values. And I know there's communities that want to have a donation program, so that's great, but I appreciate that sentiment. And then the other thing was, it's also been touched on, is just the role that schools, child nutrition directors who are on this call can play in, you know, encouraging folks to get their state license in your community. If you have relationships and if you have the willingness to share with them your intent to purchase beef if they were to participate, I think there's an important role that that you all can play in that too. So those are all my 2 cents, but the question is just around slaughtering and processing.
Yes. So for yours, it's yes to both. So typically a firm could slaughter and process either at one location, or like I said, if we can get the rules approved where we could do some type of offsite mobile slaughter and then taken back to a processing facility. The key is really going to be the processing facility. So during slaughter, we are there 100% of the time. Like I said, we look at the animal prior to slaughter, during slaughter, and immediately after slaughter. So that is 100% oversight of that process. Once then it moves to process, and beef typically hangs 7 to 10 days. So once they're ready to cut those up, the processing side can be any firm that one is either under inspection or applies to do this with this, or petitions to do this. So using Redmond Smokehouse, for example, if they said, hey, we want to be a part of this, then we have some basic sanitation requirements that have to be met. The building requirements, and I've been to that facility, they would be fine. the actual location of the processing, there's a lot of flexibility. You know, maybe I keep mentioning Burns only because I was there last, but maybe Bierman's down in Burns says, okay, we can't slaughter them yet, but we do have room to hold them. Those animals could be slaughtered somewhere else. The carcass is sent to Bierman's. He holds them for the 7 to 10 days and then cuts them up there. Another of my side projects is trying to get these plants to actually talk to each other and work together. You know, we talk about like the 8-month wait at Central Oregon Butcher Boy. Well, the reason there's an 8-month wait is not the slaughter process itself. It's that 7 to 10 day hold time. So if they slaughter this week, those carcasses are going to be sitting there till the end of next week. And cooler space is really our biggest limiting factor in these places. So if I can get these places to talk to each other and say, okay, Central Oregon has a kill floor, but they're limited on cooler space. Could we get Central Oregon Butcher Boy to slaughter? But then we move those carcasses to F5 Smokehouse, for example, and are held there until they're cut up, or to Wild River or Wild Winds, I think, up in Madras. You know, we got other options. I just got to get all these people talking to each other. And so I do as much of that as I can, trying to get them to, let's think outside the box a little bit and how we can speed up the process, because the bottleneck really is the cooler space.
Great, thank you so much. That's helpful to understand. And I was just kind of trying to picture for child nutrition folks, like, are they the ones who are having to figure out all of that? Or it sounds like you're working on it too, so that's great.
Yeah.
So Paul, can any of that $9 million be for infrastructure build at all, or is it only directly for the program itself? I mean, if we need coolers, how do we get them coolers?
Right. Yes, absolutely it can. So I'll give the caveat up front. I try not to be involved in the grant distribution side of it. One, because I really want to focus on the operation side, and we have our market access group that does that. But two, that way there's no bias. I know almost all of the producers in Oregon inside the plant. I don't know all the farmers, but I know every federal establishment. I've been in everyone in Oregon many times through my USDA career. I've done outreach now with the ODA at a lot of these custom exempt facilities. And so we all have biases, and I don't want that to play into it, you know, where I say, well, I'd rather money go over here because I know they're going to do a better job. No. They'll write their proposal, and absolutely, if someone says, hey, you know, I'm requesting X number of dollars for the grant program because I want to increase my carcass cooler size, that's exactly what we're looking for. You know, we want the money to be used to increase production. If someone just says, hey, I want, you know, $100,000 so I can hire someone to redo my labels and make my product look fancier, like, you know, Tillamook beef jerky, that doesn't help our local production. That's probably not going to score very well on the list. Market Access did a fantastic job on the first round of coming up with the scoring system and really breaking out how we get the most bang for our buck out of this grant monies. And so when they awarded it, it was really geared towards people that were doing projects to either increase slaughter capacity or create new slaughter capacity. And so I'm expecting the second round to kind of follow that same criteria, but knowing that cooler storage is the bottleneck, I fully expect some people to request money for that.
Right. And Paul, the other thing I would imagine is permitting and the lag time of, you know, build, because that's a bottleneck that's happening all over the community or in Oregon, right,
Yes.
as well. That cost for permitting, and then the lag time of trying to get the build is we're behind the 8 ball again.
Yes, absolutely. And the two other firms that are coming in that received grant money, Mountain Valley Meats up in Parkdale, and then Bussman down in Bandon, both of them are exactly fighting that. You know, the holdup isn't us or them even, it's getting the permits to the counties, the wastewater, all of that is the slowest part of this. Now, the good thing is, if you have an existing facility, we have one just south of Salem in Jefferson, H&K Meats, very nice facility, had operated many years just under custom exempt and retail exempt, decided they want to come under the state meat inspection program. They have a slaughter floor, they have processing rooms. For them, there's really no cost associated other than getting some HACCP training and spending time writing their programs. A lot of people maybe don't realize USDA and our state meat inspection program, we don't charge them anything for this inspection. It's all free. So their costs associated with it is you're going to have to do some additional product sampling because now this product is going in commerce. You know, you're going to, I think our only costs that we incur on them is you have to provide us a desk. You got to give us somewhere we can sit and enter our work because we do daily inspections at these firms. So if you're operating and producing product that's going to go in commerce, we're there. And so, you know, we're encroaching on their space a little, but we're not charging them for it. We give them 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, free inspection. And so back to the slide, I've told firms this, you know, there's basic sanitation requirements that you got to meet. That really is the key. But I've told them, and I said this at the Northwest Meat Processor meeting in May in Boise, if you treat your establishment like you do your home kitchen, you'll be fine. You know, typically you go to cook dinner, your kitchen's clean when you start. As you're using your cutting boards and knives and stuff, they go in the sink, you wash them if you need them again, and you maintain your kitchen in a decent manner. And then after you're done cooking, you clean up at some point. That's the same concept in the meat establishments. You start out clean, maintain it clean during the day, and clean it up when you're done, and you'll never have a problem with inspection. And so we do have some specific written rules that I got on the screen there, but basically you need to keep it in a clean, healthful, and sanitary condition. And if not, we give some examples of, you know, if it is unclean, unhealthful, or insanitary, that's when we're not going to let you operate under the inspection program.
Paul, do you guys have enough inspectors, or are you going to have to hire if these are coming up as fast as they are?
We're going to have to hire. So
Okay.
Currently I am a program of 1.5. I have a retired USDA inspector that come out of retirement to help me. So currently it's just me and him, but yes, as these come in, we're going to have to hire more people because it's a very specialized training. So it's not rocket science. We can train anyone to be a good inspector, but there is a lot of training involved in it, especially during the slaughter part. You know, you have to train someone how to use a knife professionally. You know, when you're working on a kill floor all day, you're using a knife, and we don't want people cutting their fingers off. You know, so we do a lot of on-the-job, hands-on training. Here's what you're looking for. Here's how to sharpen a knife, because you cut yourself with a dull knife way faster than a sharp knife. So we teach them those knife skills, the slaughter floor skills, and then in the processing, and then, you know, they go through the sanitation training. You have to, of course, know what our rules are for sanitation. You have to go through the HACCP training. So it's probably a 6-month training process that as we add people, I will work directly with them, you know, about 6 months. And so back to Senate bill. So the Senate bill for donated products, and again, I use the term donated because they did, but really anything that's gonna go into commerce. We're writing the rules for that now. The process is a slow process. We're dealing with government here. So we'll submit those to a review board, then it'll go out to public comment, has a 30-day comment period. And then they'll actually be assigned to an Oregon administrative rule. And so the law becomes effective January 1st. I'm trying to have it done by then. And so that's my goal and why I'm working on them now in August, because I know the process takes a while. So any other questions? Someone's got something.
No, this is great, Paul. Thank you. I mean, I'm hoping that we get where we need to go.
So we didn't get a chance to, this was great, Paul. I think everybody learned a lot about, you know, sort of what's behind the curtain with state meat inspection, and
Right.
also, you know, sort of understanding, you know, the relationship between the federal inspection, state meat inspection, and now this new opportunity under custom exempt facilities to potentially donate or sell to schools. So that's really awesome. I think we'll want to kind of stay close to those, you know, to those conversations and what that's looking like. We didn't get a chance to look at so you all got that Excel spreadsheet that Paul put together that, you know, characterized the firms in Oregon, or the plants in Oregon, as federal inspected, or in the state meat inspection program and soon to be coming online. So, you know, all of those companies are in that Excel sheet. And I think what we were, and then also the custom exempt ones. And I think maybe what we could do maybe in a future meeting is talk a little bit about that sheet, Paul, and how best, or what, you know, basically what people on this call, what the child nutrition providers on this call can do now in terms of sourcing meat. And is there any, especially when it comes to, I think, the form they're looking for, because some of the districts on this call are looking for example, like 6 patties to a pound of ground beef. They, you know, some of them need beef to arrive in certain sizes for them to utilize, and things like that. So maybe there's an opportunity for us to talk again about, you know, which of these plants is really, if you know this information, which of these plants are really, do they have the necessary equipment? Do they have products that are ready for schools? And you know, how we can engage with them, either ODA or some of these partners. Obviously, they're the customers too. So sometimes, just like you said, reaching out and calling these plants and letting them know what you're looking for is probably one of the best ways, right? So
Yeah, I'm an optimist. I still feel like if given the opportunity, everyone wants to do something good for their community. And so I put that custom exempt list in there specifically for, if you look at the firms in your area, let's say Baker City, if you see some firms on there that are local, it might be a good opportunity for outreach and say, hey, you know, here's who I am, and I'm working for Beef to Schools, and we want to get more local stuff in school. What service did you offer? You know, what can you do? Because most of these custom places have retail licenses as well. And so they may be able to buy in or bring in some type of inspected, either state or federal product that they'll produce for you, for the school, because it makes them feel good. You know, even if you're paying for it, they may not donate it for free, but just knowing that they're doing it for their local community, they may make time on their schedule for that, or be willing to accommodate what your needs are, like the, you know, 6-to-1 patties. I think it's a good opportunity to reach out to them and say, you know, we don't want to go to Costco and buy patties from Nebraska or wherever they come from. You know, can we source these locally? And then what sources of the the meat is available. Is this something that was slaughtered in Oregon, and can we use that? So yeah, I think if enough people are attacking this from all different angles, it can work.
So, Paul, can I just ask a real fast question? Currently, when we get commodities, we don't know where that beef is coming from for USDA. At any point, could we start seeing Oregon beef be USDA commodity products?
Could, yes. The problem is most of our federally inspected stuff in Oregon, even if it come from Oregon, kind of already has a market, or sometimes our Oregon beef are shipped out of state to be slaughtered, and then it may make it back or not. What we really want to see, or what I want to see, is we start going into grocery stores and whatever, and we see that Oregon mark of inspection. Knowing that, hey, this stuff was slaughtered here, processed here, and is being sold here. That's going to make me really happy when I see that.
Well, thank you again for your time. It's great information. Amy, let's keep the conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will send the recording out to everyone, and I'll also talk to Melina. Melina jumped off the call, but we'll work together to set up a poll for the next meeting, and we'll keep things moving along. And if you, in the meantime, you have any questions, just let me know. We also have that school meat needs assessment out, and we aren't getting a lot of responses on that. We've gotten a few. Some of you have responded to that, so that's great. But I think what we need, one of those next steps is doing more outreach and getting schools to, let us know what kind of meat products they'd like to buy locally. I think that would be really helpful when you're going out and talking to some of these plants about, what's the demand within the school market for them. So we need to work a little bit on that. So maybe we can talk about that at our next meeting. And then I think, Paul, it'd be great to have you back periodically, just to give us updates. So maybe next, the next 6 months or 8 months or something like that, we can have you back, especially after Senate Bill 479 clears or is codified in January 2024. I think maybe maybe we can revisit having you back next year. So it'd be great. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Send me an invite.
Well, and Paul, I invite you to come to Bend Lapine if you're in Central Oregon, and let's show you what we do, because I think that would help. And I'd love to have the Butcher Boys and Ben from Redmond Smokehouse, if we could all come together and we do a tour of our process, what we do, so that it kind of gives the idea to them what we're looking for. Then maybe that would open up more ideas on how we can make this happen, and invite the guys from Burns too. I think that'd be really important, because it's not that far out of there. But I just think if we all got together and saw what we do, then that would give a further understanding of how it would work for all of us.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
So I'll do offline with you. I'll do an email, and then if we could, when you're in the area, just let me know and we'll get it set up.
Sure.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for inviting me. It's good to meet you all.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul.
Bye, everyone.
All right, thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.